Good evening, everyone. My name is Krishnan, and this is my colleague Sharvi. Together, we work at the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation. We're a US-based foundation. We'll tell you a little bit more about what we do and what we've been doing specifically in this space of learning to earning, college, like school to work, education to employment, whatever you want to call it. We've been trying to do a bunch of different things across the Indian education system. So today is going to be a bit of sort of deep dives into a few ideas if we're doing. We also want to engage, like we want to, like some house rule is like we want you to sort of stop us at any point of time wherever you have a question. We're not saving any time for questions at the end. Just stop us whenever, because I think like questions are best addressed when like you have them, because otherwise you lose the flow of thought. Yeah, so that's us. My name's Krishnan. I'm like an engineer. Did my MBA from XLRI. Then I worked at BCG for 5 years, over which I spent a lot of time in the private sector, and then found my calling in the social impact sector. And then now I'm at MSDF. I did a lot of our work in education and in livelihoods, where I work with 3, 4 state education departments, so Punjab, MP, and now in Maharashtra. That's where I do of my work. My colleague Sharvi is also here. You
Yeah,
haven't
I'm
met.
Sharvi. I've been at the foundation now for 6 years, and like Krishnan, I was also in the private sector before this. You can just cut, copy, and remove engineering, put economics, and that's basically it. We can move on.
Yeah, so we are Michael and Susan Dell's private family foundation. So this is separate from Dell Technologies and the CSR foundation that they run. This is Michael's own wealth that he set into a foundation. We have offices in US, South Africa, and in India. In India, annually we give about 250 crores through a mix of grants, work with like for-profit agencies as well as investments. And we have a annual reach of about 30 million children affected by our work annually. The aim is really like to help children and youth living in urban poverty succeed at life. So our work, therefore, is around three thematic priorities in India: education, jobs and livelihoods, and financial inclusion. In education, it's a lot of work with public school education systems. We've been working since 2006, but since 2012 and 13, like a lot of that education work pivoted to working with government school systems, trying to do reforms there. And we also continue to do a lot of innovation sort of work. We'll speak a bit more about that as well. Jobs and livelihoods is our second bucket, where we're trying to sort of improve formalization, improve the quality of livelihoods that people get. So a lot of work with skilling platforms, placement platforms. Um, and we also do a lot of work in social benefits, which is delivery of social benefits and that's unique to India. Like that's not common in our US portfolios, because India has and always been and probably will continue to be a welfare state for a long time. We've also done a lot of work in financial inclusion, so enabling credit to micro and small enterprises, and then working with companies which are doing education and skill financing. So, for example, companies which provide loans to affordable private schools to scale their operations, for example. Those are just a few of those examples. And like we are a funding organization. We don't have sort of a large operating team anywhere. So we're very partner first. So we will fund a partner who then goes and works. So it'll be a non-profit. We can give a grant to. We'll work with governments, and typically that's where some for-profit organization will come in and set up a PMU, and they will work. And then we also invest in non-profits. We also take equity, debt positions, investments in social enterprises. Um, in a snapshot, like our school and higher education portfolio is like we work across the spectrum, from K-12 to higher ed. There are standalone sort of academic or skills education programs. You see these names, like we do a lot of work with many of these organizations which have been some of the big ones in India from a very long time. In higher ed also is an area where we're building out some of our work. Like we recently launched our own scholarship program in Hansraj and DTU last year. That's also one of the things that we started. The second, the whole public school systems work is really large scale partnerships with states, and we have active ones going in Rajasthan, where BCG is the PMU partner, Haryana, and then in Maharashtra, like the other ones, so we're working with CLR and Akansha and LFE. That's where we're sort of trying to improve the quality of city school systems, so the municipal schools, and then on the district transformation programs are working with the district hierarchy, district and below, to try and do a bunch of academic and administrative reforms to improve quality. We also do some outcome linked payment structures. So Lifted is this large education development bond. We also do work with Niti Aayog to try and see if we can make edtech payments, which states like governments are procuring edtech for schools, is there some way to link a larger part of those edtech procurements to the learning outcome gains that students achieve? That's a new project that we've started with Niti Aayog 2 years back, and we've had 1 year of learning in terms of how really that model can work, and we're hopeful we can try and take some of that to scale. We won't spend too much time on a lot of those things today. Our focus is very like strongly going to be on the life skills aspect of it. And then we also continue to do some ecosystem activities. Those aren't state linked. We've led the Bharat EdTech initiative, the Life Skills Collaborative, one of that which we'll talk more about. So that's a little bit about us, but we'd like to know firstly who you are. We'd like to get a sense of the mix of this room. So can I encourage you all to just pick up your phones and just scan this QR code? Want to open? You will get the same link there as well. Just go to present. Okay, you can scan the same QR code and you should be able to reach us. But yeah, like tell us your current job role, or you're a student, like what are you studying? I'll give us a flavor of like who all are there in the room, and we can perhaps tune our message accordingly to make it more useful for you. So far, we have a very unique set of people in this room, is something that I take. Okay, everyone's done. Or roughly 80-90% people seem to be done. All right, I think we have people who are like managing programs. So if we have a couple of program managers, we have people doing monitoring and evaluation, advisory, partnerships. There's a lot of people in research, so research and learning, research associates, people who founded their own NGOs and are running it. So yeah, I think it's a mix of research, educators, practitioners, people working in the non-profit space and trying to make improve the landscape. So that's helpful for us, and thank you for bringing that in. So like, let's try and like address the elephant in the room. Like, so yes, FLN is important, but why are we talking about learning to earning? So we've tried to take a stab at like all of the research that points to what are the skills students need to succeed at life, and then try to harmonize it with what the NEP and NCF are talking about in terms of making recommendations for the Indian education system. So if we just split it by a bunch of grades and say that like, there are many pathways towards employment, you can go after 10th, 12th, higher education, and then get into employment. And what really are the skills that you need to succeed? There's many ways to put it. Here's one frame that I offer to you today. Academic skills, the first one, like so NEP and NCF would say, like you should be FLN by grade 3 or 5, and then along the other grades, like there's a push for grade level conceptual understanding. On life skills, it talks about like integrating and building life skills like communication, critical thinking, and integrating that into the curriculum, and therefore transforming pedagogy. On the whole domain of industry skills, technical skills, vocational skills, whatever you want to call it, but skills that help you do well at your job. So like we look at life skills as the more transferable set of skills which are applicable universally pretty much. Industry skills are like the domain specific skills which you need. So for example, I need to study 12 years after school to be a neurosurgeon. That's the domain skill, for example, that I need to pick up. So in 6 to 8, it talks about, okay, there should be awareness building. You should get exposure to a world of work. And then in 9th to 12th, it then talks about just on the industry, sort of the technical skills. It talks about 9 to 10 start to get some interdisciplinary exposure, chance to do exploration. And then in 11th and 12th, you should get the opportunity to like of choice and to pursue things with depth. And that's where those 8 curricular areas, which will really become like a big talking point going ahead, to say that students will spend time in all of these curricular areas in 11th and 12th. And they actually have the option to spend up to 40-50% of their time to take, say, 3 subjects in a particular area. So the opportunity, like the whole push is going to be towards creating more choice, enabling specialization within the school um, itself. And then the second linked factor, so that's on what needs to happen. And then sort of the access layer is to say that all schools, secondary schools should start to offer this. And yeah, link that to higher education. Like there's the really big two callouts are, okay, the curriculum needs to become to industry linked. And then how can we embed on-job training more strongly? So be it apprenticeships, internships, guest lectures, field visits. How do you make it more employer-facing? Is that push? And then on career navigation, like it talks about can we give 100% access to career counseling in secondary schools? Um, but if we try and take a stock take of where our systems are right now and what are they doing justice to or not, or where are some of the opportunities to continue to deepen work. So Nipun, yes, like Nipun is necessary, like India works well on mission mode, and Nipun is starting to show like is a great sort of move that has been started. Like last 20 years, we made the push to get kids enrolled into schools. Now they're enrolled, as the Asar also says, but yeah, Nipun is therefore like the anchor mission that stays. But we also know like people who've been working in middle grades, grade 4 to 8, 4 to 9, that middle grades still continue to struggle while you're trying to lift the base and reduce the need for remediation later. But as of now, it's a reality that middle grades are struggling. On life skills, it's a mixed report card. Like 10 to 15 states now have standalone programs for teaching life skills across the spectrum. But there's room to integrate that better, assess it better, improve the outcome orientation, and say whether it's working or not. It's not enough just to have a program, but to really be able to assess and tell whether kids are learning those life skills and how they're being able to apply that or not. Just on the technical skills, like the world of work as a subject has proposed in the NCF, has been launched in CBSE and a few state boards, but it's yet to take off really, but that seems more on that path that CBSE is showing the way, like the curriculum is out as states adapt it, it could perhaps come in, and it's an easier solve. Some of the reds are where some of the some starting attempts have been made. So the NSQF, if I maybe take 10 seconds to talk through what is. So we have the National Skills Development Corporation. They took a bunch of job roles. They took 2,000 job roles and then they said, here are the skills you need to qualify, you need to be able to do for each. That became the National Skills Qualification Framework. So it's basically a full, if you want to visualize, it's basically a chart saying, okay, welder level 1, you can do these 3 things. Welder and advanced welder can do these 3 plus another 4 sets of things. And that's the model that's been taken from, say, that works very well in polytechnics, ITIs, and in the higher ed, like the working with adults landscape. And it gives, like, that's work there, but that's been taken and just put into school. So that's that single subject model of vocational. It's working, like yes, it's vocational, but that single subject, what are the shortfalls of just having a single subject? What are the gains? Like what do students gain from it? What do students miss out on it? Like we'll come to that, but it's not multidisciplinary as like the NEP, NCF are envisioning right now. It's multidisciplinary in a few states have tried. Also, Maharashtra has this interesting multi-skills foundational course, which students in 9th, 10th are doing because the curriculum is coming from the skills development department, so they're doing something interesting there, and now they're trying to take that to the rest of the country. And in 11th, 12th, again, you have that single subject, very narrow job role focused model of NSQF. So yes, you can say I have given vocational to this school, but is it really enabling, say, job linkage? Is it really helping students pursue like on a particular career path? We'll come to that. So there's no depth and choice really. Look, those two models like haven't been explored so far. And on higher ed, like curriculum, industry linkages are weak. Sometimes curriculum is obsolete. Very limited on-job training linkages, maybe restricted to the top higher education institutions. And HEIs are like degree colleges, which we call HEIs, there's ITIs, and there's polytechnics. That's the three kinds of things. On career navigation, that's the other yellow. Like MOE has recently put out sort of budgets, put out notifications and budgets for block level counselors for secondary schools. Implementation is yet to begin at full scale, but I think some states have made some early roads to appoint these block level counselors, make plans for how they're going to do group level one-on-one counseling. I'll take a pause here if there's any questions at this point of time. So Nipun is the foundation, is the mission to enable foundational literacy and numeracy. So it says by grade 3, you have to be a certain level in literacy, which is reading, and then in numeracy, reading in your own language, and numeracy, which is math. So grade 1, 2, 3, there's like few goals set in each for literacy and math, and that's like research has proven like that's the fundamental set of skills you need to do anything really at life, because after that you can then read to learn, but first you need to learn to read. So that's the Nipun. I will hand over to Sharvi, who can then talk about the. So this is really our anchor page. We'll spend 5 minutes just talking through this anchor page, and then what we'd like you to do is vote on these four areas. Which two should we talk about today? Because we have a lot of depth that we could get into on each, but we'd love to hear from you.
Can you guys hear me? Talk like this? Yes. I'm on. Okay. So, as Krishnan also mentioned, right, we are a funding organization and we support organizations who are working on various different sectors like education, livelihood, financial inclusion that is in line with a mission that we have. We do have a mission. We don't operate it, but we do have strategies and mission statements along which we want to then support organizations. I do want to ask just a quick question over here, and it might not be that quick, I'll take 1 or 2 minutes. What do you guys think is the purpose of education? Maybe one word. Education. Like if you had to give one word. Identity. Identity. Empowerment. Empowerment. Self-awareness. Self-awareness. Choice, someone said. Choice. Anyone else? Life. Life. Doing well in life. Yeah, so, yes. Recognition. Recognition. Could you elaborate on that? Recognition and dignity. No, it's fine. Recognition and dignity makes sense. Okay, so, yeah, so there are a lot of very different answers that we have gotten. We've also gotten flack a lot of the times for, saying how we look at the purpose. Oh. So we recognize that there are multiple different purposes of having a good education. The NEP talks about being ethical, good citizen, etc. We agree that all of these are very, very, very important. However, for us to be able to identify a certain focus area, right, and then actually move a little bit in that direction in a vast country like ours, we've broadly tried to think about it in terms of how can you enable people to determine their own livelihood also. So we have taken a livelihood lens. It can be controversial from time to time. You can come back to us after the session, tell us why that might not be the right thing. But that's why also, we felt that this is something that we can talk about, the whole learning to earning journey. And a lot of the interventions that we look at in grade 6 onwards do have that lens, right? So if I talk about this first bucket, the first bucket is around life skills and how life skills can be integrated within the mainstream education system. Now here, we actually started our journey in India in 2006. Our entire portfolio was academics oriented. It was only in 2016 when we started looking at, what are the other skills as well that are required, not only to improve academics, but also enable people to move on this journey towards being able to earn a meaningful livelihood or after school, right? What would the post-school pathway be? So we started with Dream a Dream. We supported them for quite a while, had a lot of learnings. We have detailed slides on that if you guys pick this section. As we started looking into this, we realized that, life skills in themselves are important. Doesn't necessarily have to be correlation with academics, correlation with employment. And so we started trying to measure, how are life skills improving, not your academic outcomes. And then we realized how that is really, really difficult. Whoever we talked to was sort of struggling to do that. And I think even today we sort of struggle to measure reliably at scale. That's where the Life Skills Collaborative came in, where we try to work with a group of organizations together to help develop public goods that could help standardize the vocabulary of life skills, measure life skills. That project is also ongoing. We work today now with Magic Bus as well. That decision came after, we had done a few experiments, and we can talk about that again in detail. And then we saw that Magic Bus's teacher-led program, supported by other Magic Bus staff as well, can lead to really good outcomes. And just recently in 2024, we started supporting Udhyam with the lens of entrepreneurship, because of course not everyone will be able to find jobs in entrepreneurship, and that's why I've been saying livelihoods, like various different forms, right? The second one I'll ask Krishnan to talk about, but I'm skipping it just for a second. I'll just complete the other two. The third one is career navigation. It is relatively very new for us. I talked a lot about life skills because that's our more mature sort of portfolio. Career navigation, we've done our secondary research. We are doing a pilot. We are still trying to understand what it takes to get good outcomes here. And if you guys pick this, we can talk about this in detail later. And then finally, the college to employment pathways, because unfortunately, I think this is something you guys might know, but again, quickly, can anyone say what is the graduate unemployment rate for youth in India? Overall unemployment rate in India is around 3 to 4% as per PLFS. Graduate unemployment, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30. Sorry, what did you say? You said something? 25, okay. 1, 3, 13%. So as per ILO, 29%, right? So you get the degree, but you're still not being able to find a job. On the other hand, there are a lot of vacancies out there. 89% of employers are saying they are struggling to find people, right? So that is what that portfolio talks about. Handing it back to Krishnan to talk about Punjab Schools of Learning.
Yeah, so just maybe 10 seconds on telling you about Punjab. So we worked with Haryana, Rajasthan, HP, and all of these states on large, like long-term partnerships, and we've always been trying to push these states to explore reforms in board grades. And that's always been an area where there was immense pushback that it's hard to change status quo. So Punjab is in one of the first few which has been forthcoming and actually trying to do, how do you enable choice, how do you enable depth, and how do you make school more relevant for students who are not finding much use of it. So how do you make it speak to more of their reality? So the Punjab Schools of Applied Learning program is a pilot that is 2 years in the making. The program's launching next year, but it's one of our very sort of big bet programs to say that there is a lot of deep work that we had done to just sort of think through what should be the right model. And now a lot of deep, high quality partners have come in, academic partners who are developing the curriculum. So a lot of deep thinking is going there on that. So we'd love to talk through that as well. So we'll take a pause here if anyone has questions, and then we want you to go back to Menti and we'll vote on which two we want to pick. Okay, if you can go back to your Menti, we will try and play. We're hopeful you pick Punjab because we really like this what I talk about that. We basically need to rank these, and then we spend time on two. And no worry, please reach out to us and we will tell you more about the two that we have to skip today, or if we actually have a stalemate, we'll figure out how we do all three as well. Can you give a thumbs up if you voted? No, sorry, also on the thing. It's also.
Has anyone not voted yet? Okay, can you please? Okay.
I think it would have taken, yeah, it would have registered. Is everyone done? Is there anyone still left? Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. So we'll pick life skills and then we'll pick choice and depth in skilling. And I know a lot of you all also wanted to hear about college to employment, but we'll be very happy to talk through some bit of that like later if you reach out to us. We will share the presentation also version of it. Sharvi, you want to do? Should I go first? Okay, go back. Okay, so we'll pick up Punjab first because that's just how we put it in the presentation.
Into the hype. For us to do.
Okay, pop quiz. Can you guess what these are? Typewriters. What's the other thing? Fax machine, correct? And this. Okay. What year were these photos taken in, if you were to guess? Thousands. You're close. Okay, so these photos are from 2023. This is an actual lab in Punjab. The trade it's a old vocational trade. It's called Modern Office Practices Lab, and that's one of these labs in the old vocational stream. So now there's reasons why the lab is in such a state because the old vocational scheme is a very old scheme which has been going on from the 80s. It's been replaced with the NSQF. So the NSQF labs, which you will see in different places, are actually very high quality new labs. But some of these labs continue to persist. There's a big teacher cadre which is continuing to be there and teaching this. So there's a lot of theory that goes on, but very little practical that is, because it's not possible to teach anything on these labs. Okay, here's another one. This is a garment making lab in a Punjab school. From the old vocational scheme. So again, this is not the NSQF lab, which are great labs, right? Because they are newly installed. But when you see this classroom, what do you notice? Majority of women, okay, very nice. What else? There's no guy, yeah, all girls, okay. What else do you notice if you look at the infra, maybe? Where are the machines? Exactly. So can it really be taught in a textbook form? Like so, those are some of the things that we went in when we saw. So here's so we'll do a little bit of deep dive on Punjab and we'll try and I will skim through. I think while there's a lot of slides, maybe just focus on slide titles and I will call out one or two key messages to focus on. We looked at enrollment within schools and enrollment in undergraduate institutions. Every year, about 1.5 lakh students enter the workforce after 10th or 12th. Many are going to ITIs, many are going to the workforce. We looked at those who are not going to the workforce. And this is a broad estimation, but this is really the anchor message we've managed to land in everyone in the leadership in Punjab. And this is something that whom we're trying to design something for. What we also did a huge survey of 3 lakh students currently studying in Punjab and asked them, what do you want to do after school? 45%. So you see these, the purples and the greens and the whites. If you just add those 3 buckets, all of these, so the first bar is the overall student base and the others were just split by the streams. NSQF, the vocational subject is only offered to art students in Punjab. But roughly 45% of them want employment immediately after school. 30% want to work or start their own business, another 15% want to do part-time. So, and you reflect that with some of say the schools that we've been to, everyone wants to sort of get into higher education and they are in a place to actually be able to get into higher education because their families are, their economic situations are stable. So let's reflect once on the reality of government schools. This is the state of government schools in most states that you will go to, it will be quite similar. And these students are largely from families of daily wage labor. So just notice the big bars. So the mother's a homemaker, the father's a daily wage laborer. That's the mix. So that's their reality, unfortunately. But this is whom we're designing for. So we did a lot of work on just trying to build deeper empathy towards students and understand really ki chahiye kya boss aapko. How can we make something, design it completely to what you want to do, which will make it useful for you. We looked at what sector choices were useful. So you'll see government jobs, healthcare, beauty, wellness, teaching. Not too much difference. So it's all even the highest is just 10%. But yeah, that's where they said, here's what we want to do. We asked parents, what do you want? What do you want for children? Parents said, we're happy with vocational. We're happy with making education more job linked. If it delivers jobs which have some stability and some progression. So your starting salary doesn't matter. if it's stable, like it's a formal job, they are very very happy. So पढ़ाई के साथ काम और कमाना भी ज़रूरी होता है. 10-15 हज़ार ही मिल रहा है, नहीं शुरू में बहुत है, नौकरी लगेगी तो हर महीने पैसा आता तो है ना, और आगे बन जाएगी. So in Punjab, like we have the old model running, which is that's an interesting model. So we have a dedicated stream for vocational. So students actually study 3 subjects linked to a particular trade, and then they study 2 languages and 1 career foundations course. And then there is a new light touch NSQ. We call it light touch because it's just one subject. So it's like a add-on subject, and it's typically like students like it because it's a high-scoring subject. Like it's interesting. Like we ask students कि security वाला trade क्यों करते हो? Students are like कि we want to get in the army. जो सर आते हैं वो army में काम करें. वो he comes and tells us कि army में घुसने के लिए तुम्हें अग्निवीर बनना है तो क्या करना है. So they enjoy it because of the exposure it gives them on a bunch of things. But are they learning? So we'll come to that. There's little placements, etc. data available there, but from what we heard, it is not enough to get jobs. The curriculum is theoretical, barely any industry linkages. There's one on-job training that's supposed to happen, but it happens after they move out of 12th. So after they finish the exams, they're supposed to do on-job training. So that happens as an internship, like 15 kids trying to go to one place and do it, but it doesn't really help in terms of like being able to come back and learn and sort of relearn what you learned, assimilated till then. The trade allocation across the state is a bit unplanned. So maybe it's not linked. Sometimes there's no employment in the local economy. Sometimes, so there's a lot of times when it doesn't fully make sense. And the reason why it needs to be in the local economy is like economics dictates कि if someone gives me 1 crore to go to say Antarctica, I may consider it. But if someone gives me 20,000, I may only be willing to go to the next, not even to the next town. I'll be like, yahin pe mujhe do. So there's a reason, like, so if the job is of that nature, like it has to be in the local economy. Often future pathways are blocked. So there is a healthcare vocational trade, but it doesn't let you get into, say, nursing trade. So there is no higher education pathway congruent that is also available. And yeah, labs I talked about. There's large variability. The NSQF ones are good. They're also new, so time will tell how they pan out, but at least as of now, they're good labs. So that's on the student side, parent side, and the status within the education system. We then spoke with industry to understand trades. We spoke with a bunch of industry, did a lot of mapping around Punjab sectors of economy. Where's the growth coming? Where are the jobs? And yeah, we heard from industry saying that they are interested not in degrees, but skill sets. They want multi-skilled individuals, and like individuals, like there's a healthcare firm in like Punjab that says if schools can give me fairly some skilled individuals, we actually don't need the degree. So there is openness. Yes, there is going to be competition. Like those students who get this education will come in, will yes be competing with bachelors who have studied like more, because that's just the nature of the job market, that there aren't enough jobs perhaps for the graduates as well. But this opened up a play to say that, hey, there is a role for school to be able to skill for jobs. NEP, NCF, like I talked about what the NEP and NCF want to say, but we benchmark some global models as well, and the big learning from that was to say that vocational education is typically 50% or higher of teaching time, and that's what is needed to get into the jobs. And many trades require a lot of depth and hence no distractions. Like there needs to be a set of activities you plan around just that teaching as well to make it useful. So what really is school to work? So there is a set of job roles we feel works well for school to work. So there's a universe of all jobs, but try and see what is the potential for jobs. Is it employment, self-employment? Do these job roles require skilling that can actually be taught in +2? And then do these job roles have somewhat good career progression, some stability to progress into better paths? And that became like our relevant job roles. And now we've landed on a set of 14 trades, which we feel should be like the menu of trades that India should be offering in most of its school systems. Yes, there'll be contextualization for the local market, but some of these trades have job roles which are possible to access with just a school degree. Some of these actually have, like there's work on higher education pathways which you can actually do with some effort, but yes, there is still some effort that we'll need to make to align certain pathways, but at least this progression can sort of ensure that some of that can be accessed. So there's agri-manufacturing. I won't get into too many of these. I will share this separately. But yeah, it's a bunch of these, more of these service sectors per se. Like the ITIs have a role and they do a great job of training, say, for manufacturing, but services are where, say, schools could play a role in actually training for. Um, and yeah, like there's these job roles. For each, we then mapped out job roles, we mapped out salary ranges, we mapped out higher ed pathways. Some of these higher ed pathways are open, some of these need to be made open by engaging with, say, the higher education departments, and at least at the state level, if some of that can happen. For example, BSc nursing right now is only open for science graduates. So, but if you can make the offering in such a way that at least for A&M, GNM, we may be able to open it by offering two related healthcare subjects and biology. So you can still get in there. So yeah, like the answer like that we arrived at for India is to say like you need depth. You need some general employability skills also. That's the other ask that employers made. And how can you make it more industry relevant? Just even the curriculum, the pedagogy, and the assessments. And then can you make some direct linkages at the school level? Um, so here's our pilot. The program was initially like, so this is 2 years in the making. So 2022 April is when we started engaging with the department on this. Since then we've had 2 changes in leadership, but the program then finally like, was going to be launched last year. But we had a lot, like it was a lot of push back and forth in the end. And we decided it's the best choice to actually give it a full year to prepare the curriculum, get it approved, get it vetted by students and teachers on the field. And that's what we've been doing right now. So this month, half of the curriculum for grade 11 is going to the academic council after having gone through a big sort of consultation sort of process. I'm a bit sorry about the fonts, but essentially and I will talk more about how the construct is like. Um, So there are 4 new streams being offered in these schools. So these are already running schools. These are large secondary schools that are there in the state. And each of these schools will now offer 2 of these new streams. So in addition to art, science, and commerce, a school will offer a digital design and development. Just make graphics will be one subject, digital marketing is one subject, app development is one. And then along with that, the students will study 4 foundational subjects, 3 of which are being revamped. So functional English is being revamped. So it's a spoken sort of a more business communication style focused of English as opposed to literature focused. There's career foundations, which is some of the more sort of 21st century skills being brought in. And there's technology in everyday life, which is computer science for everyday use. And yeah, so each student will basically, each of these schools will have 2 of these streams opening up, and students will pick up, will be encouraged to take one of these 2 new streams instead of the vocational streams that's there. In some cases, the old NSQF subject is also being taken. So you'll notice in, say, BFSI, Banking Financial Services, the business correspondent is actually the NSQF scheme course, which will stay as it is. And like MSDF support has been to fund, like identify, we went through a long competitive process to evaluate different partners who are wanting to develop the curriculum. We now have IIT Delhi developing it for digital design, Max for health, Orain, which is a big sort of Punjab local partner who also have a presence in Canada. LabourNet for BFSI, Functional English by Cambridge, and Career Foundations by Dr. Padma and team from TIS. So we're quite excited that we're trying to see if a very high quality curriculum can help. So these are 40 schools, 2 trades in each schools. In each school, there's about 25 students per trade. So that's about 2,000 students in the first cohort. And we're trying to then take it to 200 more schools by the end of next year, and then maybe to 400 more. So that's the longer term scale pathway. But yes, there's a lot to be done between now and then. But that's the paths that we have sort of aligned. Some of the, yeah.
Be replaced.
So this is the additional stream. So most of those schools have an old vocational stream running.
Yeah.
This will replace the old vocational stream, and now this will be, those schools will basically offer
Only these subjects which you showed.
They will offer 5 streams. Basically, they will offer science, arts, and commerce, and BFSI and healthcare, for example. 2 out of these 4. So that's so this is basically the depth model of vocational, which we want to say that is what it takes to give you outcomes in jobs. Questions? Now we're doing a lot of, like, we had VCG as the PMU partner, so there was certainly a lot of slides made and a lot of planning that had happened. But yeah, there's a lot of work around 12 areas. I've spoken about curriculum, but yeah, from the state's end, there's commitments around, like, there's a budget that's been announced for SOAL. So teacher hiring, civil works, computers, trade lab materials. A lot of extensive planning has happened, and now we're sort of tracking to that. Every month we have a meeting with the secretary, principal secretary. The board has appointed a curriculum advisory group, which is reviewing curriculum, so subject experts who are doing that. And yeah, now as we get ready for next year's launch, now the push around students enrollment, trainings, and then the whole piece around how does the industry come in to engage. So we're trying to see if an industry advisory council can come in, some marquee partners identified across the state, maybe and find a way to figure out how local networks can be created for these industries who can come in and say do some guest lectures, who can come in and like offer internships to these students, and then can we do some engine to set up placements as well. And then lastly, like we're also working on a skilling white paper, which we want to take to say that the NSQF model, single subject model, yes, maybe for 60%, 70% of schools in India, that will be the answer because they aren't of a sizable, like they aren't large enough to be able to offer multiple trades or like streams. But at least for the top 10, 20%, like the large 10, 20% secondary schools, you need to make the offer of this depth-based model. And maybe this then helps achieve the way towards the flexibility that the NEP says. So if you're able to make this work, how can this be integrated, even as one stream in depth? We're also exploring conversations with other state systems and trying to see if there is some interest in taking some of these reforms forward. At least the cross-cutting subjects are where you don't need infra. We have that curriculum developed in an open source format to be able to use freely across other states. So the partner, the state, and MSDF, all three own it. So we're freely, like we want to just make it publicly available for everyone to use. See the functional English curriculum for 11th and 12th. And yeah, like we want to do some more sort of sessions like this. We continue to build and evaluate the program. We'll get a good MEL partner. We're also planning to write research around what works, what's not working. And yeah, just share more on this. I'll take a pause here, like if any thoughts and questions. Anil. There's 1.5 lakh students going, like not who are unemployed annually. No. So that was just students studying in schools. Like there's no way to track. So basically we ran a school survey. Like the survey happened in school. So basically they designed a questionnaire that got administered in computer labs. So this is all students in 9th to 12th who were there on a particular day across a large chunk of schools. Yes, sir.
So the challenge always is to get the instructors for specific grades, and now that we are also looking at career foundations, it is somewhat new for teachers. At this stage, probably your partner organizations will take care of it. But as you go beyond, and it's not possible for all of them to run, how will this become part of the government's own machinery to do that? Earlier, vocational education efforts have really floundered on this. In fact, people have really lost their job because they actually promised that there will be 50 lakh instructors and it could not be done. So how exactly can?
Yeah, no, that's a very legitimate area of concern also for us. Like right now, the model is actually the state has put a budget to appoint contract teachers for being able to do this. So yes, from a sustainability point of view, yes, state is putting a budget and it will keep it. But preparing them, like whether they will be able to, whether they have the base skills to learn, and then how well can we train them to be able to deliver. We're hopeful that some of that high quality curriculum partners that we have will give a good curriculum and be able to train them well. But yeah, that's one of the biggest risks right now. Teach it is absolutely, it's completely different. Yeah. That's one big risk that is there. But we've tried to flip them. We've tried not to do the model where we get very high quality teachers from the partners who deliver it, because there's no pathway to like sustain it.
So I may have missed it, so apology from, so they'll let me know. But are there partnerships with industries? One question. Other is the study in terms of what is traditionally, what jobs, other things. Like in Jharkhand, we had looked at it on one point to say all the natural resources, how are they using it, etc. So are you looking at, because when you say it will spread to other states, what is true for Punjab may not be true for Jharkhand. So my question would be to say, have we also looked at the industries or those who are in entrepreneurship when we are talking about? Also there are unions, there are groups of people who are doing same things. Are you also in touch with them? And
Yeah.
how
So
does it go forward?
So, ma'am, I would say one is for the industry advisory, like getting industry on board right now for this project. That's something we are initiating now. So we're hopeful we get an advisory council coming in with representation from all of this for Punjab. So, and they will play a big role in actually say dictating like what is it that they need. Like one lens we've said is to get industry partners only as curriculum designers. So that's one lens, but they will play a bigger role going forward. If
Say
Yes,
what is
yes,
required.
absolutely. So if you could give the curriculum to them and also ask them, "Okay, like, look, boss, is this enough to like, will you hire
Yeah.
someone who has studied this?" So they will come in now. So that's the time we will start some of that engagement now. And then for the state itself, like in Punjab, like we've done the right hand side is like the macro analysis we had done from using all of the available secondary data to say what are the different sectors, what are some big shifts. So that kind of analysis will have to be done for each state, which will be slightly different. Somewhere you will have more say cottage industries, they would have a larger share, and therefore that will dictate some job roles. But our analysis of those 14 trades, though, we feel like it is should work for most of India. The number of trades you finally end up offering, or the number of trades you take those schools to. Like right now, we picked the big five, big 4 or 5, which were having good job potential, good demand also. But yeah, that's something will have to be done for each of the states.
Must have given thought to assessments and the connection with the national credit framework.
Yes, so that is a big discussion that's been happening in the last 1 month, and we're hopeful. So we aligned on an assessments frame so far on practical versus theoretical, how much that works. But really getting that into say credits, which can then be used in higher education institutions, and also maybe some alignment with the NSQF sort of certificate, NSDC certificate. Those are two discussions that we have like sort of going on in parallel. Some early inroads, the higher education department has expressed keenness to be able to support some bit of that. So at least in state government institutions, we can make some of those pathways, unlock those pathways. That will be.
Any particular data about how many dropouts are there
From the schools, you're saying, or from the? So this school data, that school dropout data which we had done actually was, it's not a perfect analysis because like schools, we are able to tell how many have gone out of the school system. So how many, like GR will tell you how many students were enrolled in 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. So you can see, okay, students have gone out. But
my concern would be like, for example, if some student is using the basic skills to do some certification in the class 12, and because of that particular thing, they do not want to pursue the further education. Might be basically wants to do like a BA or some education which normally they are doing, but if they started earning the things and they basically take it up as a the positive thing, then how would we basically
yeah,
challenge?
the aim is not to say that placements is the only aim of this. It's not. Like there may be many students who don't want to say take placements up, and if they do, like they drop out because they found something. That's also like that's a great outcome for them. Right? They found something that's useful. In fact, like often when like the case as of now, when they're dropping out is more, they don't find use in that anymore. They're not finding use in that degree. Punjab doesn't have a major issue, as much of an issue as many other states on like 10th to 11th dropout rate. So that's among the highest, like about 90% students who graduate from grade 10th actually get into 12th.
And was that the baseline survey that you have taken the Punjab as a state first?
Honestly, like that's where there was traction to say that we're happy to do some of these reforms. What helped is they already had this old vocational scheme that is still running. So the board was still issuing certificates saying that 3 vocational subject students were doing. So that made it easier. So in many of the states where the scheme has sort of now gone out, they will have to sort of realign their subject schema to say we will drop 2 existing subjects and do 2 more vocational subjects. That is a push, and we're hopeful if we show good outcomes and youth need, like education and employment training outcomes, if we're able to show more are going to better quality education pathways, employment pathways, that will provide some proof for this model to say this depth-based model should work in some of the large.
And just on the drop-offs piece, we did do some rough estimation overall using UDI's data, like looking at 2012 cohort to 2023 and looking at what the drop-offs have been. We also tried to find some data on what are the reasons for drop-offs. So there is some NFHS data talking about how like actually 18 to 20% of the people, maybe 19% of the people actually do want to work, right? So not everyone will want to work. There are lots of different reasons for dropping off, but there is a large enough population that would.
Yeah, curious to know that is there any correlation between students achieving their FLN competencies or not achieving their FLN competencies impacting their performance in the vocational course or their ability to do better in the vocational studies? Because here in the graph, the repeated failures number was quite low. Why people are dropping off is only 4% because of repeated failures. So does it really matter that even if students are not achieving say FLN competencies, but they really do well in the vocational training and achieve those skills of the trade, they can still be employed or they can still do better in life? Is there any sort
Come
of
across like literature on to like justify this particular thing, but yeah, intuitively we feel that
I mean,
maybe
theoretically, it makes sense that, yeah,
theoretically it
achieving
should.
this should enable them to
But yeah,
perform
yet to
better.
see like any like big study around like some research around this. Maybe there is, but we haven't. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Sure.
So, as a student, one of the things that I do look at is employability, but it's also the curriculum. And you talked earlier that curriculum is one of the bigger challenges because it's often too theoretical. So, out of all of the four trace subjects, maybe you can talk about how one of them, like, how is it different? Because you already said there are vocational subjects being provided, but these new ones will sort of take away from the old ones. So, I just wanted to know on how exactly would they be new? What would they be considered to be new?
So like that's an interesting like push to say that how can we almost how can I describe maybe how it's less theoretical. So like the from the start the push was around a lot of activity based learning. So students are actually doing like getting into the lab or like starting to use the equipment as early as say the second month of like how you start. Or typically like you would have like a window of saying itne time we will teach and just before the exams we will do practicals. But getting into the lab earlier and using like, having the classroom as the lab. So a lot of activities, that's something that we've seen so far. The partners are all like someone like an Orain is actually an organization that runs physical sort of training, salon training, like salon training institutes across Punjab. So they have a big network, and in each of those 40 schools, actually they have an Orain center nearby where they've offered we will just take and train the teacher there and train the students also there. So those kinds of connections that we're able to see where they go and practice that. So there'll be a component of you will have to do an internship during say at the end of 11th. You will have 3 or 4 guests sort of like industry professionals coming in through the year who are actually going to talk about how it is. At least 2 of them should be say local sort of people working in the local economy who give you a real flavor of what it's like to work there. So yeah, it's a lot of activity based work, lots of more emphasis on just being able to do practicals, even in the assessment sort of schema, like what 40% is reserved for practical. So those are kind of things we're trying to save. How do you make it less theoretical? Baki, the partners have also in a way like educated a lot of us because we also weren't fully sure how that will pan out, but I think we're having a good.
Income also considered as one of the success indicators or the levels or employability and field they decided to focus that much?
Yeah, like I think there's a fine line. For MSDF, other projects, we tend to look at, say, 15, we call quality job as one, which is giving, say, 15,000 per month. But yeah, I think here we'll have to, I think we're still figuring out what works because, like, a 25-year-old earning 15,000, it's different. It's maybe equivalent to a 18-year-old earning, maybe will only get started 8,000-9,000. So yeah, maybe we have to make that sort of understanding. Yeah.
And I can just talk a little bit about our livelihoods portfolio and how we look at that, right? So what we've realized is that it depends on your starting point. So if you have dropped out of school from 10th, right, and then you're trying to from open complete your degree, and at the same time you want a job, you are actually 10,000 per month is amazing for you. But the students we have talked to, they always have a vision to be able to go back to studying and then come back at a higher. So career progression is very important, but maybe starting point, even a slightly lower salary for a lot of students, that is also aspirational. So that's something we also learned when we were looking at healthcare in more detail. A lot of students look at even general duty assistant as a very aspirational job for starting. Though at first, like a description when I had read, I was like, okay, I would not want to do that. But again, the realization again and again that we are such a diverse population and we need to keep that in mind. I think we are very close to time. So I'm going to try to rush through these slides. I'm going to just want to point to certain things, and then you guys can always come back to me later, ask me any questions, email me, you'll have that information. As you saw in the presentation that Krishnan also showed, when we are either building a portfolio or in the project instance that Krishnan talked about, co-creating a program, there's a very big aspect of secondary research, primary research, iteration, and then going back to the drawing board, rethinking about the objectives, etc. So that's something that is pervasive in all of the portfolios that we try to build at the foundation. So here we'll talk about some of the evidence that we've looked at in portfolio creation, and at the same time also want to emphasize that with direct impact, so we support organizations that have direct impact on the ground. At the same time, we usually tend to have a learning agenda associated with it as well, because we do believe that all of these interventions, at present, none of them are perfect, right? So it's a continuously iterative process that we keep learning about. This is something that I've already mentioned to all of you guys, so I will just skip through this. This question I do want to ask, World Economic Forum, core skills for 2023. Any guesses on whether coding comes up in the top 10? Like, who would say coding would come up in the top 5, top 10? Yeah? Yeah? Coding, programming is number 13, okay? Who would say reading, writing, mathematics will come up in the top 10? Right, it's 16. Okay, so just very quickly, these are the top 10, right? Today, ChatGPT can do maybe it can't do arithmetic for you yet, but a lot of these things can be done. So just wanted to put it out there. And then where are we learning these skills, right? So these were some of the questions that we were asking as we were building, thinking beyond academics and seeing whether the education portfolio needs to expand at the foundation. Okay, I'm just going to keep looking at time. So globally, we know that life skills are actually considered an integral part of most education systems. In fact, around 152 countries have it in their, education policy, etc. PISA is also now assessing creative thinking, problem solving, things like that. India also has it, right? Even in our 2005 curricular framework, there was mention of life skills. Even today, if you look at the clause 4, within that, they talk about building capacities like creativity, communication, collaboration. And when you look at the national curricular framework, what you see is that it's not as a standalone subject. They have language, mathematics, interdisciplinary courses, etc., as standalone subjects. Life skills are more treated as capacities that need to be developed while imparting these subjects, right? And through new and different pedagogical practices. And this, I think the national education policy, you guys would always be aware also, has really created a momentum around for states to start implementing life skills education programs. So there are quite a few states today that are implementing programs at scale, but the type of program they're implementing is really varying, where in some states it'll be like one no-bag Saturday. In other states, it could be a daily one-day period, right? In some states, it could be like a competition. So dosage really varies, and we don't right now know what is going to have impact. We do also have a lot of practitioners in this space, right? So there are some very good things. Even in the state conversations we have at least had, we've seen the officials very excited about being able to implement things like this. But there are still certain issues in this at-scale implementation, right? So I won't go into those issues in detail right now, but I just want to I talked about how, okay, sorry, I will just jump to our portfolio. So we believe that there are still a lot of open questions out there on how to implement life skills. We believe it's very important for life skills to be integrated within mainstream curriculum. Our portfolio today consists of 3 direct partners that we rely on to impact students as well as help us learn some of these pieces. We are also supporting one ecosystem solution, and through our partners impacting 2 to 3 million students annually. So like if I look at Teach for India, right? Teach for India, of course, as a program has a lot of different objectives, but they have really been able to integrate life skills delivery in their classroom delivery, right? So a social science lesson plan will have some of these communication collaboration pieces integrated within it, but it relies very heavily on teacher capacity to be able to deliver something like that. With our district-wide, state-wide interventions, we're trying to understand more about dosage. What does it take? Like, does one day a week, is one day a week enough? Do you need a daily intervention? If it's a teacher-led curriculum, like what are some of the designs for the curriculum that need to be there? Is it possible for us to measure? So in life skills, some of the biggest things that we have seen is that self-assessment in itself is not enough. You need observation also. You need triangulation with other stakeholders also. So we are still trying to address all of these questions and trying to learn more about them. But our process has been quite iterative, and I would say sort of moving upwards, right? So we are learning more and growing, and we do believe we are being able to support quite impactful interventions. I'm not going to go into details about what our learnings have been. I do want to highlight one thing, that really measurement is quite a big of a struggle over here. And we've worked with a lot of partners to co-create some measurement tools. I just like for you guys to maybe read this one question, right? This is a situational judgment question. It tests thinking skills. I'll give you 2 minutes, just read through it. And then after that, we'll just quickly see who says A, who says B, who says C. Who says B? Yeah? Okay. Who says C? Okay, quite a few at C. Who says D? Okay. So who says that there is one right answer? Okay, so there are multiple right answers. Do you think the right answer would depend on whether John lived in a different country than India? Lived in Germany, where people maybe are not that, welcoming for neighbors to come into their house at 3 p.m. So yeah, I'm just putting some thoughts out there. Like the amount of time, I think 18 hours of time has been spent on building one tool of like 18 different organizations. So I'm just trying to maybe bring out the complexity that comes in delivering life skills interventions and also measuring. Given the limited time, I don't really want to go through too much more. I just want to leave you with that thought. And yeah, I think I will now hand it over to Krishnan to just sum it up.
Okay, we'll share this presentation, so please don't worry. Like, I'm happy to engage more. Yeah, so like after all said and done, like what do we like land on, like a summary of implications of like how we could think about these years going forward, how we could all play a role here. The first is around like we just need to experiment more. Like there is a lot of great work happening in the ecosystem on FLN, on data governance. Every state is now setting up these large data systems and monitoring systems. So administration will do that well, and they will have a lot of data flowing here and there. Can we be ready? Can we be ready, having tried out many models for life skills, 21st century skills, domain skills? and try it, iterate it, and start to design that for scale. So like when you have, say, 80% kids at FLN in grade 8, like can we already have, say, solutions that can actually come in integrated with them? The second is like, then how do you go about doing this? Like now the thing about now how it's different, like the one big difference between, say, regular academics like FLN is the fact that there is one more big stakeholder here, which is the employer. Like you're trying to design for them as well. So can you invest in just building deeper empathy, a deeper understanding of what it is that they want, what it is that the schools can offer, what it is that the students want. In fact, like so many programs of ours, like we start off by thinking, okay, hey, here's what we think students want, but turns out that's not what they want. Like you're like, okay, मैंने placement तो बनाया, but like no one's signing up for the job. Hey, so then that isn't really talking to what the students want. So just try and build deeper stakeholder understanding, contextualize. Like for students, that means there are many paths to livelihood. Some want it now, some want it later. For the industry, like understand their needs. And a good like articulation, like one of our colleagues from the US gave us, that like in all of these, they call it career connected schools. And maybe that's the vision to like make it. And he calls it like, and our programs, employers steer it while the educators are pedaling. So the educators are really the pedal towards where you want to go, but you really need the industry as the steer to say that how am I going to take like whoever is going to graduate from your system. And then lastly, try and measure, like in each of these, just measure, like MSDF's sort of USP, or like the big anchor, like any partner that works with us, you will ask them, you'll tell them, measure learning outcomes. If it's an academic program, okay, tell us learning outcomes. Tell us the ROI, how can it scale? So yeah, like measure, and yeah, like that can really, and your amount of investment that you're putting in it will really determine scalability. So last thought for today, like I think we'd love to hear from you all. What is one idea that resonated with you strongly? And then we can even maybe invite a couple. I'm not sure how much time we have, but yeah, I think that's previous one. Third one.
Maybe the QR.
Yeah, just you can scan this QR code here. And then just let me know when everyone is scanned, and I'll move to the next. Yeah, just a second.
Just go to the last slide. Or you can just go to Menti.com.
Yeah, you can go to Menti.com and put that.
356278116.
Yeah, okay. You've been asked to conclude very nicely. So we will now conclude.
You have concluded.
Thank you everyone for being great audience. You guys have interacted a lot with us. Please do reach out to us. We would love to chat with you, think more about some of these ideas. And not just outcomes, right? We believe process measurement, program measurement. Like there's a slight deviation, maybe example I can quickly share. In one of our programs, we saw that students, only 50-60% of the kids were submitting a homework, right? And why? What we saw was maybe because mostly girls were submitting, maybe because that homework seemed very feminine. It looked very, like it had lots of drawings, and like the guys were like, it's not cool enough for us, right? So it's just, measurement can really give nice insights, and it it should be along multiple